Hello, this is step 3. We will be connecting the doll's front and back panels to make the body of the doll. We will also attach the ears we already prepared from step 1. As explained in the previous steps, the side where the pattern is clearly visible is the outside surface of the panels. Have the outside surface of the back panel facing forward. Mark the center V point. We will place the ears evenly on each side from the center point. Make a mark on both sides 4 centimeters away from the center point. Okay, let's attach the ears. Place an ear on the top like this with the colored side facing forward. Do not line up the end of the ear exactly at the top of the panel. Instead, place it a little bit past the top of the panel like this. The end will stick out a little bit. Do not stick it out too much. Fix it by using a pin. Do the same thing to the other ear. This is to make sure the ears do not come off when we sew them on. Place the front panel on top of the back panel with the outsides facing each other. It is important to match the V-cut center point on both panels. Pin the center to fix them together. Secure the rest of the panels with pins as well. When matching the edges of the panels, you will notice that the front panel is bigger than the back panel. This is normal because we sewed 2 panels together. If you flatten the front panel, it will look bigger than the back. Do not flatten out the front panel. Pull on the middle a bit and match the edges together. Fix them with pins. Once you are done, draw a sewing line O, 8 centimeters from the edge of the panel. The armhole area has a sharp corner. Make sure to draw the sewing line exactly the same as the outline of the panel. Leave about 5 centimeters for the opening hole. Do not sew the opening. This will be sewn in the end after filling the dowel with fiber. Start stitching from here. Apply back stitching along the sewing line. When you get to the corner, make the stitch end right at the corner. Rotate the fabric and continue stitching. You want to make sure you sew the corners this way. If you don't stop right at the corner and make a stitch over it, you will end up cutting the thread when you clip the fabric with scissors later on. It is very important you do it this way for each corner. Please be careful when you are sewing where the ears are. Make sure you do not accidentally sew the ears that are inside the panels. Push the ears gently in and keep checking as you sew. When you get to the end of the ear, sew all 4 layers together. Pierce the needle at an angle when sewing on the thicker areas. Match the center point of the front and the back. Carefully sew the center point while keeping the seam allowance spread. Keep stitching towards the opening. This area is similar to the center point. Keep the seam allowance spread and sew. Sew up to the opening and finish. Secure the stitches with a knot several times and cut. Now, we will clip the seam allowance. Please look at the paper instructions to know the areas that we will be clipping. When clipping the seam allowance, do not cut too close. Leave about 2 millimeters of the seam allowance uncut from the stitches. You might cut the stitches if you cut too close to the seam. There are 2 points of clipping here. Turn the dowel inside out through the opening. Draw sewing lines on the armholes. We will be doing running stitching on the armhole sewing line after filling them with fiber. Let's start putting fibers into the arms. Break up the fiber fillings into smaller pieces to avoid lumps in the doll. Make sure the seam allowance is going in the same direction when adding the fibers. The doll will look prettier by doing this. Push the seam allowance up or down. It does not matter. Just make sure it's going in one direction. Keep the center seam allowance spread apart while putting the fibers. Push the fiber in to make room for sewing. We will apply running stitch on this sewing line. It will be hard to sew because of the fiber fillings. We will use tacking stitches to hold the fibers in place and make it easier to apply running stitches. Tacking stitch is often used for holding the fabrics together temporarily. We will remove the tacking stitches later. Now, you can apply running stitching here readily. The reason why we sew the armhole line is to prevent the fiber fillings from moving around in the body when you wash the doll. We will be using the easy way to start stitching technique. Grab 1 or 2 fibers. Pull the needle and put the needle into the loop. Please check out our tutorial videos for easy way to start and end stitching if needed. Apply running stitching. It will be easy to sew because of the tacking stitches. Once you are done, we will secure the stitches with a knot. Lift up 1 or 2 fibers of the fabric where the thread is coming out and make a small stitch. Repeat it 1 more time. And then, insert the needle into the doll away from the thread and cut the thread as short as possible. Stretch the fabric to make the end of the thread get hidden inside the body. Next, cut the knot of the tacking stitch and remove it. Shape the arm and push the fiber fillings up to the line. Repeat the previous steps for the other arm. Now, fill the entire doll with the fiber fillings. Fill the farthest area from the opening hole first. Keep the center seam allowance spread apart while putting in the fiber fill. Break up the fiber fillings to avoid lumps in the doll. This is a quick reminder. Make sure the seam allowance is going in one direction when adding the fiber fill. Push the seam allowance up or down. It does not matter which direction as long as it is going the same direction all the way. Please do not add in too much fiber fill. If you add too much, the fiber fill might stick out through the stitches. We will now close the opening. Draw sewing lines on both sides and make sure they are the same length from the edge. Okay, we will be doing the easy way to start stitching, so make sure you have a loop at the end. The starting point will be 5 centimeters away from the beginning of the opening. This will help make the stitches look more natural. Apply slip stitching and close the opening. When you get near the end of the opening, do the same method as the beginning. Stitch out 5 centimeters more from the end. Secure the stitches with 2 nuts. Grab 1 or 2 fibers and make a small stitch where the thread is coming out. Pull the needle through the dowel away from the knot and cut it. Shape the doll. Good work! You have finished making the body of the doll.